Wow, look at this crowd. I understand we can seat 3,000 people down here and expected about 2,000. I think we may have exceeded that. What an historic occasion this is. Lord willing, we will experience many more commencements and hooding ceremonies in a long and hopefully illustrious future, but today is very special. This is our first. You, the class of 2018, are the focus of our celebration today, and we are thanking God for this day. President Falwell, Dr. Carson, Provost Hawkins, Dr. Martin, Dr. Baker, families, friends, and distinguished guests, but especially the great class of 2018, I welcome you to our first hooding ceremony at Liberty University College of Osteopathic Medicine. I say great class of 2018 because of your magnificent accomplishments for completion of medical school and achieving a match rate for residencies that exceeds the national average. Congratulations. I'd be amiss if I didn't add, as some of you know, these last few days have been a little harrowing. We've had hours of prayer, thank you faculty, preparation and planning for graduation, hours of last-minute conversations with our accrediting body, even an emergency impromptu stop, drop, and pray prayer meeting with faculty and staff to ask God to give us the strength and perseverance to complete what He started. But the Lord was faithful. God navigated the waters, and with the Lord's help, we are here today for your graduation celebration as a fully accredited U.S. medical school. As I stated in the press release last week, this announcement of full accreditation would not have been possible without all those who have supported and prayed for LUCOM from the very beginning. This was not a one-person nor a one-team operation. This endeavor was only possible through the efforts of the faculty, staff, student doctors, executive leadership of the university, our clinical and community affiliates, our financial supporters, and our friends of the college. I am especially thankful for the untold number of hours of preparation contributed by our founding dean, Dr. Ronnie Martin, along with his wife, Sherry. This process started under their watch, under their supervision. This answer to prayer is a testament to their hard work and devotion. Thank you, Martins. And I might add, if starting a U.S. medical school was easy, everybody would do it. This is a momentous occasion for each of you in the class of 2018. This is a milestone for Liberty University and fulfillment of a vision cast over 40 years ago by Dr. Jerry Falwell, Sr. Class of 2018, you've heard me say this, you were chosen to attend LUCOM based on your character, capacity, and motivation, and it was truly a divine appointment that guided you to attend this medical school. I have seen you demonstrate your passion for medicine with a servant's heart, true concern for others, and an owner's mind, accepting responsibility for your actions, whether you were in Virginia, Africa, or Guatemala. Nearly 2/3 of you are entering primary care residencies. A large number of you are focused on serving in rural and underserved communities, and many of you are heading towards the international medical missions field. And a few inaugural students who will not walk across the stage today have undergone additional academic endeavors. I said to the entire Lynchburg listening audience in last Friday's radio interview with WLNI, quote, "With our first class, we've hit a home run." As the Apostle Paul wrote to his protege, Timothy, in the second book of Timothy, chapter 4, verse 7, "I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith." and you folks have kept the faith. I pray these words will be true for you as you have trained for the race and have completed the first phase of the marathon. You are winners. You are champions for Christ. You, the champions of Liberty University College of Osteopathic Medicine, quote, in order to affirm our tradition of unwavering faith, ignite a passion for wisdom, challenge perspectives, inspire creativity, and pursue knowledge, do resolve to be the voice for the voiceless, bring healing to the hurting, fight for the oppressed, defend freedom, defy stereotypes, and follow God's calling wherever it may lead. And champions, the next race begins in 6 weeks as you enter the next phase of the marathon as residents. In the words of our founder and father of osteopathic medicine, Dr. Andrew Taylor Still, quote, I do not want to go back to God with less knowledge than when I was born. I want my footprints to make an impression on the field of reason. I have no desire to be a cat and walk so lightly that it never creates a disturbance. I want my footprints to be plainly seen by all. Class of 2018, I am so blessed to see you grow in wisdom and knowledge as osteopathic physicians. I marvel at your accomplishments as student doctors and soon-to-be colleagues in the high calling of osteopathic medicine. I have seen the joy and selfishness you have demonstrated to each other as you have strived towards the goal of completing 4 years of medical education. You have loved each other with the love of Christ, and may you always maintain these friendships you have begun here. I have also been blessed by the love and support you gave to my wife, Irene, and to my family, as we moved here to Lynchburg last year. Little did I know that the Lord would stretch me in so many ways, truly to the limits of my strength and abilities. In many ways, this has been the most challenging but satisfying time of my entire professional career. Thank you for the love and fellowship. I now officially welcome you to celebrate the accomplishments of the class of 2018 and to praise our Lord for all He has done for us and through us. Thank you. A round of applause for the class. Dr. Jerry Falwell.
Well, it's hard to believe it's been 4 years since we had the opening ceremonies up on the mountain with you guys were in white coats, I believe, and we opened the medical school. Really all we had to brag about then was a beautiful view and a beautiful building, and it's just unbelievable that 4 years has gone by so fast. We've had an incredible day here at Liberty University. We've been so blessed to have speakers like Dr. Ben Carson, President Jimmy Carter. You know, President Carter said he's never been treated with more hospitality at any public event he's ever attended before. And so he left here with that impression of Liberty University. Dr. Carson, I think, spoiled Dr. Bell's surprise. He had invited Dr. Carson, lined it up, and I happened to go with Becky to the Museum of the Bible Gala, the opening of the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C., and Dr. Carson and Candy were there. And he said, I'm speaking at your medical school graduation. And first I'd heard of it. And so, so sorry, Dr. Bell. I know you were trying to surprise, but good job, good job. You couldn't have done better. But 4 years ago, you started on a new journey with us here at Liberty University. Entering medical school was a new experience for you, and operating a medical school was a new experience for us. We had a brand new, spectacular facility outfitted with everything necessary for world-class medical training. We had some of the best physicians and healthcare professionals in the world on our staff. We were ready, but we needed you. We needed students who would join us in our mission and set an example for all the classes that would follow. I can say today that the trust you placed in us that means so much to everyone here now, to our administrators and to your professors. As we congratulate you on completing your degrees and send you forth to your residency training. We won't forget your boldness in beginning this new venture with us, taking the faithful step on whether or not we would obtain accreditation, and we did, and it's all worked out for the best. But we appreciate your trust in Liberty University. This class will always hold a special place in the history of our institution and in our hearts. We sincerely thank you for choosing a new medical school, Liberty University College of Osteopathic Medicine, and for representing us so well in your rotations at local hospitals and clinics and in your service to others here and abroad. Part of LUCOM's mission is preparing students to have a servant's heart, to be competent and passionate in the workforce. I believe we have accomplished all that. I hear reports from physicians all over the community on how delighted they were to have worked with you, how your compassion for others is evident in what you do. The extra efforts beyond your class times were obvious. Whether it was conducting a community clinic just down the road in Danville or tending to medical needs in Guatemala, Honduras, Peru, or the Dominican Republic, you stayed on mission as true public servants. I can't leave this stage today without thanking those who made this day possible. Dr. Ronnie Martin was with us since the beginning, and he is joining us again today. He's our founding dean and the reason we have a magnificent building and the quality training you received. He pushed us to spend the money that we were a little bit reluctant to spend, but we listened to him instead of to our financial people. Dr. Martin built this from the ground up. His background in launching a medical school was invaluable to us. He will forever be a friend of Liberty University, and we will forever be grateful for his devotion and for his prayers. Dr. Martin, it is my honor to congratulate you today on the news that LUCOM has been granted accreditation from the American Osteopathic Association Commission on Osteopathic College Accreditation. And I think that might be why he left. He was afraid we weren't going to get it. But you sure that's not it? Okay. I want to thank our current dean, Dr. Peter Bell, for his leadership in continuing to pursue excellence for this program. He is committed to public service, and his passion for this field translates directly into his work here. He is achieving wonderful things, and our program will only continue to grow under his leadership. I also want to thank our financial donors. When we broke ground on the Center for Medical and Health Sciences in the fall of 2012, I called it the last piece of the puzzle in my father's original vision for a world-class Christian university. Without a $20.5 million grant from the Virginia Tobacco Indemnification and Community Revitalization Commission, we would not have ventured out so boldly and so soon. They helped make it a reality. People like Delegate Kathy Byron, Terry Kilgore, so many others. Mr. Noyes was the commissioner of the Tobacco Commission at that time, but they all supported us strongly and believed in our mission to support community-based medical access in Southside Virginia. Now it is my privilege to once again introduce Dr. Ben Carson, U.S. Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. He sat where you sat once, prepared to enter a career of caring for others. Thank you, Dr. Carson, for the significant contributions you have made to the field of medicine and for the work that you are doing today with the Trump administration. Please join us in welcoming Secretary Ben Carson.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you, President Falwell, for that kind introduction, and thank you, Dean Bell. And thanks also to Drs. Klink, Hawkins, Baker, Martin for all the work that has gone into this momentous occasion today. It's always a pleasure to be back here at Liberty University. I feel quite at home here as opposed to some other universities where you never know what you're going to encounter. But Liberty is the heart and soul of the American conservative educational movement. And its positive influence is not only here in the community, but throughout the nation and throughout the world. As Secretary of HUD, we're working hard, challenging the status quo, the same as you are. And we're shaking things up in a positive way. We're no longer measuring success by the number of people enrolled in federal housing, but by how many people move out of poverty into financial independence. After all, you certainly wouldn't gauge success of a hospital by how many people it admits, rather than how many people are successfully treated. And as secretary, I'm the trustee of the taxpayers' money and of some of America's most vulnerable families. Have the complete backing of the president to help millions of assisted housing families reach self-sufficiency and their full economic potential. And that's a big responsibility. We're more than ready to meet this challenge of bringing hope to the neglected and opening new doors of economic opportunity and social mobility. As Secretary of HUD, I often think of the first rule of medicine: to help, or at least to do no harm. And I think this carries over into public service as well. I'm sure everyone here would agree with that. Now, as was mentioned, I saw Dr. Falwell at the Museum of the Bible, but I also came upon a very interesting ancient artifact there on the top floor, a massive 100-ton block of worked stone. It came from the Western Wall, also known as the Wailing Wall of Jerusalem, and was one of the many huge stones which formed the foundation of the temple that was built by Solomon. And next to it was a sign that said, "Please touch." I was truly electrified as I touched that stone and made a connection with the Bible's early teaching and the wisdom of the Bible. That's how I feel today looking out at this graduating class. What could be considered the result of all the classes and curriculums, teachers and instructors, libraries and laboratories, the very foundation stones upon which this new temple of learning, this College of Osteopathic Medicine, has been built. It's an amazing day, one that brings all of our efforts to completion. And I'm glad to make this direct connection today with all of you who will carry medicine into the future. Now, this was by no means an easy journey. Building a College of Medicine in this fiscal climate and the partisan debate that takes place about anything that's new. And it took immense dedication and tireless effort and unshakable faith. Of course, there were a lot of doubting Thomases out there who said you couldn't create a world-class osteopathic medical school built on a faith-based curriculum along with the accepted academic standards of science and medicine. Today, this graduating class stands as a testament to the university's courage and resolve and to the power of God. We should never let anybody shake that. The faculty was highly protective and selective when it came to the curriculum of the first entering class. One might even say to such an extent that Harvard and Yale would be embarrassed by the thoroughness that they went through. Each of you was specially vetted to guarantee excellence, and you have surpassed all of those expectations. Now, I have to say, as a youngster growing up, medicine was the only thing that really grabbed my attention. You know, our family physician was a DO, but the thing that really grabbed me were the mission stories in church and Sabbath school. They frequently featured missionary doctors who traveled all over the world at great personal expense and danger, sacrifice, to bring not only physical but mental and spiritual healing to people And to me, they seemed like the most noble people on the face of the earth. So I decided at age 8 that I would become a missionary doctor. And that was my dream until I was 13. At which time, having grown up in dire poverty, I decided I'd rather be rich. So at that point, missionary doctor was out, and psychiatrist was in. Now, I didn't know any psychiatrists, but on TV, they seemed like rich people. You know, they lived in big fancy mansions, drove Jaguars, had these big plush offices, and all they had to do was talk to crazy people all day. And it seemed like I was doing that anyway. So I said, you know, this is going to work out extremely well. And I started reading Psychology Today, and I was the local shrink in high school. Everybody brought me their problems. I would sit them down and stroke my chin, say, tell me about your mama. And then I majored in psychology in college, and I was gung-ho. I had professors like Anna Freud, the daughter of Sigmund Freud, and you know, I was going to be this great psychoanalyst. And when I got to medical school, I started meeting a bunch of psychiatrists. Just kidding. Some of my best friends are psychiatrists. But then I'd stop and I had to ask myself, what are you really, really good at? Because I think God gives all of us special talents. There's some things that we're better at than everybody else. And I started analyzing my life, and I realized I had a lot of eye-hand coordination and the ability to think in 3 dimensions. I was a very careful person. I never knocked things over and said, oops. It's a good characteristic for a neurosurgeon, by the way. And I love to dissect things. And I put that all together. I said, you would be a terrific neurosurgeon. And I started out as an adult neurosurgeon, but I quickly discovered that no matter how good an operation you did on those chronic back pain patients, they never got any better until they got their settlement. Whereas with the kids, you know, what you see is what you get, you know. They feel good, you know they feel good. They feel bad, you know they feel bad. And you can spend 15, 20 hours operating on a kid. And if you're successful, the reward may be 50, 60, 70, 80 years of life. Whereas with an old geezer, you know, they'd die in 5 years or something else. So I'd like to get a big return on my investment, you know. Just kidding, I like old people. I'm one of them now. Anyway, but, you know, moving on as a pediatric neurosurgeon, what an incredible experience to intervene in people's lives. The most important thing they have, and to be able to make a difference. And even today, as I travel all over the country, I run into so many of my former patients, many of them grown up now. And it really is a very incredible thing. And seeing some of my patients who've gone on to become doctors. One of them's even a neurosurgeon now. I remember operating on him when he was 12 years old, and he said, I want to be a neurosurgeon like you. And today he's an attending neurosurgeon. But, you know, the road that you travel is not always going to be an easy one. There will be bumps in the road. There was a big bump on the road to my becoming a physician. Because as a first-year medical student at the University of Michigan, I was all gung-ho. I thought I had cleared all the hurdles and everything was going to be smooth sailing. But I did terribly on that first set of comprehensive exams. So badly that I had to go see my advisor, who, after looking over everything, advised me to drop out of medical school. He said, you're not cut out for medicine, and you're just going to torment yourself and everybody else. So why don't you just drop out now? This is the person who's supposed to be helping me get through. And, you know, I went back to my apartment. I said, Lord, I thought we had a deal. I thought I was going to become a doctor. And I started thinking, what kind of courses have you always done well in? What kind of courses have you struggled in? And I realized I did well in courses where I did a lot of reading, and I struggled in courses where I listened to a lot of boring lectures. And there I was listening to 6 to 8 hours worth of boring lectures every day. So I made an executive decision to skip the lectures and to spend that time reading. I can tell you that since you're graduating now. And the rest of medical school was a snap after that. And in fact, some years later, when I went back to my medical school as the commencement speaker, I was looking for that advisor because I was going to tell him he wasn't cut out to be an advisor. Because, there are some people who are just negative. And they can always tell you what's wrong and what won't work. But they never seem to invest any time in helping figure out what the real problems are. And I hope none of you will ever move in that direction. And it's so important to be a holistic healer, a person who looks at the entirety of the individual, the soul, the brain, the body, and to treat people the way you would like to be treated. Not as the colon cancer or the emphysema or some other disease, because I've heard so many people in the medical profession refer to the patient as a disease. And they're not a disease, they're an important individual created by God for whom Jesus died and for whom we have the privilege of intervening to change their life. It's also so important to consider the people that you will be working around. The ward clerks, the nurses' aides, people that frequently you walk by and don't notice, but they notice you. And they notice what kind of person you are. And it has an impact on them. And I knew all their names, communicated with them regularly, talked about life in general. And I'll tell you, there was never anything that I didn't know, because they would tell me. Particularly if I was about to get in trouble for something. They would come and tell me, you better go do this, you better take care of this, because they were talking about it. And it was wonderful. In the operating room, I would grab a mop and start washing the floors between cases. And boy, would that motivate people to get to work. And I got a lot more cases done than anybody else because they wanted to make sure that I was taken care of. And I wasn't one of those surgeons who said, you can't talk in my operating room. I wanted to hear from everybody who was there because sometimes they noticed things that were very helpful in that case and to that patient. And then to your colleagues, to acknowledge and work closely with them. There was one case of conjoined twins. I had done a number by that time that had come to Hopkins from Europe. And I said, you know what? You got the #1 neurosurgery department in the country. You got some terrific people here. Some neurovascular people, some skull-based people, some tissue people. Why not get them all involved? I had 18 neurosurgeons involved in that case, slotting them in team by team when we came to the part of the operation where they would be the best. And we were literally 10 hours ahead of schedule doing it that way. And that's what happens when it doesn't matter who gets the credit, when it matters what happens to the patient. But the thing that really taught me and gave me real perspective was early on in my neurosurgical career. I was thinking I was pretty hot shot, I must admit. And there was this little kid from Georgia, real prodigy, saying Bible verses already by the age of 2, but by the age of 4, he could no longer walk. And he had double vision, and he had a number of problems, and he was diagnosed with a malignant brainstem tumor, inoperable. And the parents sought opinions from all over the country. Everybody said the same thing: take him home, keep him comfortable, and let him die. And they ended up at Johns Hopkins. And I remember seeing that little boy roll onto the ward on a stretcher, barely moving, barely breathing, unable to handle his secretions, eyes looking in different directions. And I was thinking, what am I supposed to do here? And I saw the CAT scan. Big, ugly brainstem tumor. And I said to the parents, there's nothing I can do about this. There's nothing anyone can do about this. And they said, but doctor, we were led here by the Lord because we would find a Christian neurosurgeon and he's going to heal our son. He's going to use you to do it. And I protested and I said, no, I understand. I feel for you, but I can't. They said, doctor, the Lord. And I said, okay, I'll tell you what. MRIs were new at that time. I said, let's get an MRI. It may show something the CAT scan's not showing. They did an MRI. I showed it to all the neuroradiologists. They all said, malignant brainstem tumor, nothing to do. And they said, but doctor, the Lord. I said, look, every now and then the scans are wrong, maybe 1 in 1,000 cases. And, you know, it could be like a fungus with a big reaction to it. So I'll do a biopsy. And they were delighted. And I took the patient to the OR, opened it up, went down to the brainstem, big, ugly, grayish red mass, took a biopsy, came back high-grade glioma, a very malignant tumor. I took out as much as I dared, closed them up, went out and talked to the parents, and I said, you know, it is what we thought it was, and, you know, only God knows why a person is here and how long they should live, and we'll understand it better by and by, all the things we tell people. And fully expecting that child to deteriorate and die. And those parents said, doctor, thank you. But the Lord is going to heal our son. I didn't believe it. But over the next couple of days, he started handling secretion. His gaze became conjured. I said, what's going on? Let's get another MRI. There was still a big, ugly tumor, but there was a little ribbon of tissue way up in the corner. And I said, is it possible that this is a tumor that's outside of the brainstem? It's just so big and it's compressed the brainstem. And I said to the parents, maybe we should go back in. And they said, by all means. And I went back in, and the character of the tumor had changed. And as I peeled it away under the microscope, layer by layer, I got to the last layer, pulled it away, and there was a glistening, intact brainstem, smashed in this place, but intact. Long story short, that boy walked out of the hospital, and today he's a minister. But it was really for me, because I thought I was this hotshot neurosurgeon and I was doing all this stuff. And I realized at that point that God would be the neurosurgeon and that I would be the hands. That's where the term gifted hands came from. It was a gift from God. But also, the oncologist in that case came to me and he said, Ben, I've always been an atheist, but I'm a believer now. And you know, a lot of what you do and the way you act will have a profound impact on everybody around here. You all have tremendous spheres of influence that God has provided for you. And if you use them the right way and allow Him to work through you, it is amazing. And not only in the operating room, but everywhere. Teaching people not to be hateful. It threatens our country right now, the hate and the discord. You have more influence than almost anybody in helping to change that. Helping people to realize that we're not each other's enemies. And that we have a great country. We're the only ones who can destroy it. And if we're willing to work together and to remember the godly principles of loving your fellow man, caring about your neighbor, developing your God-given talents to the utmost so that you become valuable to the people around you, having values and principles that govern your life. If we do that, not only will we have a great nation, but we'll have one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Congratulations, the first graduating class.